Welcome to Sheep Films. In this video, we will dive into the movie Spartacus, House of Ashur. We will discuss movie storylines and its ending. We will also talk about the movie cast and characters. Moreover, we will discuss movie reviews and its box office. So here we go. Starz' Spartacus House of Ashur is a thriller sequel for the blood-filled Gladiator franchise TV review. 15 years after the debut of Starz' hit drama Spartacus Blood and Sand, creator Steven S. Knight is returning to the ancient Roman Republic to rewrite history with a sequel series. Spartacus House of Ashur in the original show and its subsequent chapters Spartacus and Whitwell before his unmeted death and the later by Liam and killed the trader Ashur on the mountain Vesuvius. In House of Ashur, the former gladiator gets an alternative ending. One is which is the arrogant Serena lies instead of being killed. Ashur takes Spartacus' life and is consequently rewarded for his treasure by the Roman Empire. A particular tale draped in the violence and eroticism with new series follows a man separate and to hold on to the newfound allied status with the embarrassing quest for honor and glory. The 10-episode first season critics received 5 for review opens in a dream sequence instead of meeting his damage. Ashur and turns against Spartacus' aid in the Roman soldiers for his effort. He has been given his gladiator house and the patronage and his former master Batiatus, though Ashur is delighted with his newfound standing, which includes the company for his body slaves Hilra and the Messiah, as well as Colria, and the doctor is the charge of training his gladiator. He is still laughing stock among the allied who has assumed those stabbing Spartacus in the back are like a coward. There is much to be gained for of London under the banner of a House of Ashur. Should it actually accent Ashur gladiators, especially the ambitious Torchen and the cadets are eager to bask in the notoriety riches and the freedom and champion status would bring them. Unfortunately, Ashur ideas to achieve this goal infuriates everyone when their recent champions in the masquerade in the arena Ashur and chorus head to the docks where the answers hold like for the potential new fighters. There Ashur find himself attracted by a Chinese woman getting the best of the guards, memorized by her agility and the fearsome beings, and the Ashur purchases a renaming hand Achillia and frocking chorus much to horror to train her a gladiator. It's a role that Achillia is neither manly nor physically prepared for. Like its predecessor, Spartacus House of Ashur is absolutely bursting with sex and violence. Their themes are so embedded in the series that they function as plot point and their own right. The amount of sex and nudity depicted will undoubtedly leave the most liberally minded viewer and blushing inside and outside of the gladiator arena. Deck 9 highlights how brutal and violent this world total and the from steel thorax to crushed skull and the dismembered soldiers' human organs and gets are consequently on display here. However, a gruesome act at the end of episode 2 for second is sure is shock the senses. Moreover, while the majority of action centers on street fighting and the arena, Spartacus House of Ashur also piece back the treachery woven into the era's politics, which Ashur is presently linked thrives. Everyone standing in the Capua and the precarious and likely to change any moment. Ashur desperate worked with one favor of the senator Gabinius, and despite the senator wife Claudia Black clear disdain for him. Yes, these efforts are consequently undermined, especially amid the arrival of Julius and the cashier and his treasure wife and the Cornelia James letter for Rome. Overall, Spartacus House of Ashur is a dynamic follow-up to the previous chapter, a classic tale of haves and have-not is ancient Rome, where power is everything. Drachnar's world is an acting as ever by offering Ashur this new life and ensuring his story to Achillia. The series bring very unlikely figures to the forefront and the showcasing the extremes which they go to previous and the position, and also highlight how visually and the adversaries will fight to ensure the traitor and the gladiatrix demise. Spartacus House of Ashur review. Jupiter's cock, there is a new season of Spartacus heading to Starz this weekend. Now, if everything in the last sentence made absolutely no sense to you, Spartacus House of Ashur is probably not the right show for you to dive into the right now, but more in the moment on what unfamiliar with the brilliance with that Spartacus should have to want to initiate into the brotherhood. But if you happen to be a fan of the original series, which aired in the 4 installment from 2010 and to 2013, is to joyous new indeed, because even though the original series told the full and the complete tale of the gladiator Spartacus and his famous slaves and uprising, in the turns there is some story left to tell. So I don't have time to get into my entire page as you why should watch Spartacus. The original run of the series is currently streaming on Netflix, but it's a series that I really ended up falling in love on the recommendation of TV critic Mon Ryan. Mo wrote and a great review of House of Ashur complete with her pitch for the Fox should give Spartacus as a whole chance, and I highly recommend reading it. Yes, the first couple of episodes are rough, but once you get the hang of the unique language and the level of the melodrama, violence and nudity, equal opportunity nudity as well, and see the series has some truly compelling characters, stories and performances. It's a hell of a ride, but watch the original series before diving into the House of Ashur, and your experience will be so much better for it. But you say did not and Ashur Nick Tarabay, the will and scheming slave of Batiatus, died during the uprising after betraying the slaves to the Roman, no less. Why yes he did. So how there is a new series all about him. Well, it turns out sometimes the good have a sense of humor, and when you see and those you have been and the dishonored punished even more, and House of Ashur parents us with a sliding doors sequence premise, and wherein Shore was successful in the betrayal and managed to the spear to the ultimately killed Spartacus during the uprising. This saw him lifted to the place vacated by the Batiatus, who along with the Loridia and all the other major characters from the original series still died, and made damnation of the ludus, and who the slave is the master, although the remain unexpected by higher society due to his status as a Syrian outsider. A fun little Easter egg, John Hona, who has played the dearly departed Batiatus, who won the Starz of solving doors. It's a enduring premise. Ashur was the master of scheming in the original series, always playing as slides to secure himself the best possible odds and outcomes. He was the league of the better first, a total short, and he never to manage to achieve that truly wanted respect. Instead, he was Batiatus' bloodhound and doing his dirty while work, believing they deserve better. Here he has the position of the dominus with the continue to lack respect. Hell, even the gladiator don't particularly and respect him, although he no longer has the injury from the previous series, so he can do crossword with his fighter when the need arises. Today is clearly having a bath, stepping back into the skin of his farmer and the character, imbuing with the same discerning eyes as before, with a good amount less august. And if you have to criticisms of the series, thus them take it to by long, the really let Ashur started working on the necessary schemes to try to achieve his goals. There is a bit too much exploitational work with the gladiator and not enough of the Roman gentry, with the sureness to work with it. As for those gladiator and the gentry, we will have the entirely new cast of character, with one key expectation who shows up in the episode. For that I would not spoil here, although the actor playing the character is new. To get acquainted with two particular and stand us to cut off the same, and there is some before there in this world. Claudia Black for Scap stages as Juan, the Nevers and the Sugar. She is your two gal, and you are casting a badass in the genre TV show. Takes on House of Ashur central woman with a power role, playing Costia, the dominant of the rival house, whose central husband is often Rome, along her more freedom than must have hive and the would have, and she is gotten to be too used it. When you are in the world of Spartacus, there is a specific language too, and you have to willing to roll with some truly shocking purchase for time to back acquires herself expectationally while turning in the perfectly collaborate performance. And there is Gamma Amistravish as a chorus, a short doctor, a census doctor, and Amistravish is a particular in a new show role and grounding a lot of more and trick element of of the story, it's rare that you're a sympathetic character in the world of Spartacus, but Chorus fair to one. He's certainly and no weak there is convening to as many around. There is a nobility to MSTV performance that help balance everything that is swelling around him. The story itself is not particularly revolved. Ashur wants to be granted the right to have his lords represented at the Capua arena, and the original arena was destroyed by Spartacus and has yet to rebuild, and the other Ludo did not want to forever and even with a high profile and patron and given the honor. So Ashur must game and place the various power players of another in the hope of climbing the social leader. Along with there are a number of traps and the pitfalls and the navigate both in society and within the Ludos, and yes, there is sequences of incredible violence that strangely thin and the blood is still used to help to temper of some, the especially glory kills, lots of sex, and yes, there is a number of the character once again, including some of the central ones, and lots of scheming and was the original series, and the treatment of slaves and gladiator as a property to the earn remains a central theme of the writing, and Shravan Deck Knight and his team make sure never forget. Despite some intense, where is a Roman might treat a slave with grace, and there is watching people being treated nothing more valuable than nice the chair. The deaths are dismissed and the consent is unnecessary, and those with power is the violated unrelentingly, and keeping that in the forefront of the series have to remain, and as Joe's well Ashur has risen up and how to hard two of those in power around him to expect just who is new compared to his once was. Freedom does not mean everything. Then you are no longer property. You will still to have to claw fight your true relevance, and while Ashur was never a character one wanted to real root for the back in the days of Spartacus, is fascinating to watch him to try to himself into the person. He also desperate wanted to become back then. If you were part of the Spartacus brotherhood back in the day, you are going to love this series, and you are never gave it a try. Now's your chance. It is a hell of ride. Spartacus House of Ashur premises Friday, December on, and the Starz 5 or the 10 episode were provided for review. Spartacus House of Ashur series premiere review. My younger self is losing their shot. The Spartacus saga holds a special place in my heart. It's one of the stories that introduced me to the power of the storytelling and show just how too much television can accomplish. Up to that point, I was obsessed with the network shows, but my deep dive into the Spartacus was like riding a sports bike after years on the bicycle and with training wheels. I circle back every couple of years for comfort, and there is always something to discover. I have probably rewatched it 4 times the scale of narrative, romance, gore, action, and language to took of my entire being, and for a while I spoke in Spartacus. When Spartacus House of Ashur was announced, no one in the whole wide world was happier that I was. Now, after watching the 2-episode series premiere, I am largely impressed by that has been achieved, but it's missing something important. Why Ashur of all people? Alethea once called Ashur a serpent and the forever seeking the head of the and the position the perfect incompletion of the character. Ashur before his death and moment mount of the Vasius and a garbage human. He lacked honor moral, and the respect. He was a murderer, theft, cheater, and the rapist, worse than the invalors of the room, Strovan, and the Dark Knight decision to back his show on the shore was a choice. The man has no redeeming and the qualities, and even the rackle and bring him back to an alternate life. He has not changed, but Ashur's moral bankrupts and would not have been so evident of the Spartacus and his people had not existed. They represented absolutely goodness, the stance of even the face of great challenge. The preceding installments of his saga landed harder because they had a clear direction in mind, and slavery in all odds famous across the land. It was an easy message to get behind because slavery is the biggest stain in the human history, and that's saying something for the species capable of doing anything to each other and our environment. This righteous cause a cause Spartacus was willing to lay his life for, and is why House of Ashur lakes it is a place in the blinding aspirations of a man loyal to nothing but coin and power. I am unsure and how interesting this is or whether it can situation a show high multiple seasons. Somehow it works, and yet against all odds the show finds a ram, and because Ashur is redeemable and because his corruption is endlessly watchable, but of all its shortcomings, get the coin is valid goal, especially with a character like Ashur. We know there is nothing beneath with he will anything of more and the power. We last saw this burning desire to the skid in the Batiatus, but he had to limit Ashur's character, his love of child, Spartacus, steadfast depreciation, and the Batiatus' unquenched thirst. Spartacus of Ashur and the fools are neat track to bring the character back of life. Literature offers an opportunity in the unworld to the experience what else you have seen, and the certainly history with the plate and different. He first Spartacus and is now dominus of his house. However, they don't give any justification for the lordity and doing this in this short penance in the afterlife instead of the Christian version where something in the dead burns of the alternately you believe the best version of your life over and over. In this Locoria, why too exciting revenant of the short part in the destroying her life and that her beloved Batiatus. That short does not say and the silence is either genius or a fatal flaw. However, the question might be irrelevant once someone impressed and himself in the familiar world. House of Ashur because feared in the ability to reach after and the world without missing a beat. It truly feels like we never left. It does not seem like 12 years have passed since Spartacus the Far of the Diamond. The nostalgia hits harder when the fight ourselves in the House of Ashur, formerly the House of Batiatus, and this house as a character it is like nothing as its Rome and seeing to include once again full of gladiator is exciting. Something are the same yet much has changed. We have a new doctor and who is menacing as a predecessor. Peter Mason's performances omnious and remain one of all-time favorites. So I was very skeptical of the chorus, but rise to oceans he does to chorus does the domineering presence omnis and had been witchcraft with the same zeal his word cuts as deep and his voice warms as a lot. And Garmic and Sitavish bring great energy with the chorus, the diamonds and respect for someone who is very spectacle. I am all in the doctor. The conflict, the same cannot be said of the ludus or the entire house of the large where trust is little and brotherhood is always unexpected. This strategy has to do with the new dominance we has to regard of tradition for the unfying Solegans. Everything begins and ends with the money and power. Glory would do not know her. The deepest interest will be that break this house unless it's inspired and other replants and the gladiator feel disgraded and the dominus could care less. Chorus is always a few seconds from the wishing a short head. Wine and wars can only the keep dazzle for long and even the most of the origins must end at same point. Oh, I smell a religion and not just because some gladiator upbringing rank because Spartacus is still alive at least the spirit. House of Ashur tries to keep the Spartacus alive through other character as the death and the mythologies and the conspiracies begin. Some gladiator think the bringer of rain is the hiding somewhere, a theory that becomes palace and the rebels and hanged and the Spartacus body is nowhere to find. It would be the plot twist to century and it is the alternate history. Spartacus was alive and began to bring the right goes hell and Rome. Meanwhile, life is for the living and Rome must be Rome. That means Slavery is still going on. The game are fairer and then ever the power of ultimate prize. It sounds the Ashur kind of party. The premiere does a great job of introducing the character and conflicts as the shrine seeks to embed himself in the circle of witness and the most powerful. It's easier than death and there is established order and the ambition can sometimes work against Ashur. He is like a hyena and pointed himself with the sport and thinks he like a leopard and they can smell the hyena in him forever. House of Ashur weapons as intricate web of frat relation with everything has agenda and sometimes that agendas and the mutual exclusive friends on the force without a notice and brutal is always expected. It sprinkles and enough intrigued make following the story worth in. The secret weapon. However, the story will have to add the interesting with Achillia. She brings a different energy that no man could. She is adoring fires and the confrontational. Some of these the traits are not good for the sake, but she is well found to use them to her adventure. Achillia would have to possible. It is not for a short desire for icon propensity to break over the in the book. Their characteristics work in his and shows favor because they allow the writers and the incredible and that's almost always always welcome in a story. The character breaks tradition and give House of Ashur the spectacle in need to find the Spartacus size hole left by the art history timeline. The writer had a great job of introducing the character and revealing the many ways to shake by the ludus. However, I am sure Andy Walk and the coming because Achillia as a black women of color seems to be dragged granted from their mother's basement and returned to Auntie and Walker. The show has always and the character of the royals is right front and center. Try not be so miserable all the time as Corius work to turn her raw survival in tunics and the entertainment and the arena and Kosher the bring the ludos and the Romer promises top tier entertainment and we will hear for of all. Get check everything critics come to all the it is pretty lovable but I feel and see however man and the movement of the Spartacus part of it. He was a big reason for the past success and the absence leave a gaping chasm that can break its shows beyond weapons. Blood and Glory. First Spartacus House of Ashur. Reviews are pure gold. Spartacus House of Ashur premieres Friday, December 5th on Starz. More than a decade has passed since season 4 wrapped, raising a fair question in today's social landscape and entertainment climate. Is there still peace for a show as bold and unapologetic as Spartacus? If the early reviews are any indication, the answer is a confident yes. Critics say Shorter, stubborn as Deck Knight, and the returning cast have delivered exactly what longtime fans were hoping for. According to the first wave of the reactions, the revival chapters the spirit of the original series, while laying in a new story turns sharp character drama and striking visual spectacle. In their review, RogerBird.com praised the series starting as the offers as a rarity in the world where the prequels and robotics and threats of the style or originality, a spin-off series that not only honor the legacy of its predecessor but one that at times rivals it. Variety.com also offered up the praise, proclaiming a classic tale of the haves and have-not in ancient Rome where power means everything. Deck Knight's world is as energetic and the ever. Similarly, Collider.com review was also full of praise. Spartacus House of Ashur essentially pulls off the molecules and the leaning of the mythological and of an ancient Roman belief to rewrite history and give a character of new lease on life. And the rap enough and the statement calling the revival a surprising and violent new direction. House of Ashur will be a history-bending erotic thriller roller coaster experience that builds on the everything that made the original series a colossal hit. The series poses the question, what if Ashur, Nick Tarabay, had not died on the mountain Amvisius and the end of Spartacus' vengeance? And what if he had been gifted the gladiator school once owned by Batiatus and written for the aiding the Romans in killing Spartacus and putting end of the slave rebellion? Spartacus House of Ashur will consist of 10 episodes. The show does not have an exact release date yet, but Starz has slotted it for a winter 2025 premiere. To be afforded the opportunity to return a decade later to the series you loved in such a rare, wonderful opportunity. Sir Tech Night and via press statement, I could not be more excited to craft this next chapter in the Spartacus saga with Starz, Longseed and the incomparable Nick Tarabay. House of Ashur will be the fifth Spartacus series following 2010 Spartacus, Blood and Sand 2011 prequel series Spartacus, Gods of the Arena 2012 Spartacus, Vengeance and the 2013 Spartacus War of the Diamond. Joining Tarabay among the cast are Graham MC Davies as a chorus, Tanika Davis as Achillia, Levin Baquero as chorus, Jomisa Vajan as a Hilera, Jodie Weber as a Torchen, Claudia Combe as a Costia, Indian Shaw Smith as a Verida, Saffron Shorts as the Vividus and the Legals as a Starz. There are also rumors the couple of the Spartacus franchise witness and make a couple of surprise appearances. A review of Spartacus House of Ashur. There are few shows that are in this era of the peak television that have captured the attention of audiences quite like the hit Starz. Spartacus vanished too, and simple because this is a series that people still think of fondly and still fawn over. All because this remains a bold series that opted to tell a compelling story about the oppressed and those who wanted to be more in life than more peptides for the rich and powerful. Not to mention it featured incredible writing, manufacture and the acting and the big moment that stuck with you in a week and week out. Not to mention it was very sexy and stunning, and all of these elements just keep us coming back for the more and its end let us laughing for more. Because so many folks that there would not mind another season, would not mind returning to that world, but show wrapped up perfectly, and it made seem though the saga would forever remain in the memory. But in the world of the television, the end does not always mean the end anymore, because there are a show and deeply beloved that sequels and spin-off in their respective universes are finding root and that are making audiences happy. They can reverse and the thought they lost. Well, it just so happens the Starz is in getting into the game further by way of Friday release of the next chapter in the Spartacus franchise, Spartacus House of Ashur, which at first glance seems like a show that should not have and could not exist. After all, we know Ashur fed in the original story in the brutal and tragic and were death related. But Chauvinist stubborn as Deck Knight figured out to way and make the impossible by offering up a story as unique and dynamic as what came before. Simply because this is new chapter in the show sees Ashur be granted and the second chance in the life by the very god, the role ever unpleasant, and whereas he may and may not be able to finally lead a worthy life, which is an offer he quickly accepts, and soon it is a position of the power of at least and all the needs to truly have influence and sway in this life in the finest of the gladiator for the games. For that speak to a man with great riches and great strength, but that will be no easy task, because the gladiator are not the finest and the rival of a talented fighter who also happen to be a woman that debuted Achillia might be the key to give Ashur the life that will please the gods, provided of course he and Achillia can get on the same page. That has happened to a brilliant way in which bring the franchise back to the awareness, and thus simply because that better way to bring a Roman character back into the fold that through the will of the gods. They allows for this story to go new place in the franchise and explore all kinds and of is for Ashur while giving the series incredible depth through some fascinating commentary for Ashur and quest of more and being immediately speaks to the modern world and the quest that so many embark upon to have wealth and power and the gatekeeping that inquired and the created regarding such matter, plus the arrival of a gladiatrix being the representation and the commentary on the relation and just an amazing new character in the Achillia, since his story and his fascinating and Horvath's incredible depth. And however, while that make it seem as the thought and series in more dramatic and nature perhaps abnormal and the know and love about the saga, that simply not be case for commentary and holding mirror up to society always been present in this series. It's just involved and created to the times here, and it all balanced out by the familiar welcome element, because make a mistake about this show is packed with everything you enjoyed in the original. For there is a plenty of action, plenty of stunning violence that would make the harriest of horror fans and cranes, plus it's sexy, it's thought-provoking and just of fun, thanks to the fact that this series has outrated and chapters the magic of the original and takes it new heights, and it always does not hurt that this cast is simply top notch. For Graham MC Tavish is simply electric by the chorus, the man responsible for trending Ashur gladiator and the as incredible depth to a type of character that is often and two-dimensional in stories outside of this universe. Not to mention, Tekna Davis is simply amazing as Achillia, ensure that she is hero and we root for the through and through of the course. Nick T. Tarabay also slipped right back into the role of the Ashur and truly gets to do some wonderful things. There is a man with a second chance, and all of these elements bring forth magnificent and the new chapter in this saga, one that will please old fans and attracted new ones with its amazing acting, dynamic and the writing, overall incredible storytelling, one that uses the second chance we will crave to bring us back to universe we love, and truly it will be quite the joy to see this refreshing new chapter in the saga takes and the Ashur in the weeks to come. Spartacus House of Ashur review, Starz Sword and the Sandal spin-off delivers sexy glory spectacle. Nick E. Tarabay reprises and role as the former gladiator from the Assyria for a sequel set in the alternate timeline in which the character survived to rise through the ranks of the Roman society. Asset from the both being sword and sandal drama set in the ancient Rome 2000s, Gladiator has nothing whatsoever to do with Spartacus, the Starz race that the Royal 3 seasons from the 2010 and 2013, but has watched the Spartacus House of Ashur and newsprint from the later, and my ears kept ringing with that signature like line from "and you are not entertained." House of Ashur is nothing not hell-bent of the entertaining, serving a bacchanalia of sex and the violence to make Game of Thrones look restrained, and the end of bitchy backbuster to the power and entire Ryan Murphy miniseries by the end of the 5 hours sent to the critics of a 10-part season. I could only answer that question in the giddy, executed affirmative yes, yes, I am entertained. That division of fun extends to its very promise. Spartacus heads will know that Ashur, nicked by Tarabay, that definitely, and the Grovis and the Parent show's second season, and therefore has no business starring in his own sequel. Spartacus' new base, and which include your faithful review and will know none of the and don't really do, and House of Ashur resurged and the fan favorite anyway, that because creators stubborn as D Knight and also the mind behind the original thought it had been interesting. The choice is justified in universe via a leverage and the speech of the guest and star Spartacus, Allium Loci, lawless the balls and its alternative timeline. Don't worry about it. In this version of the event, Ashur is a former slave and the gladiator was the one who killed the rebellious Spartacus and was subsequently make master of his own house. Despite his newfound wealth and the status, he will start and that night by the established nobility who miss the opportunity to remind the Syrian always with the sneer of his lowly and the foreign origins, as he is at the best shot at climbing up the ladder in the finding victory in the arena with his own ludus, stable of fighter, the newest and all more conversation and the question of this Achillia, Declan Davis, the realm first ever filmic gladiatrix. House of Ashur feels like a silly show in the sense, and it puts its lizard's brain the player front and center, without a short of the apology or self-seriousness in the sight. In character don't simply have sex, they are through and the extraordinary and the created origin get eaten out while catching up our latest political cause. They do kill and clearly when the back and through skull and tear of body parts, spilling and blood to feel the Mediterranean, and no one stalls for just talking shut in the series. Fox Latin syntax drop article loads of curse words, then they can scheme to hurt their enemies, and Republic hamleted of straight up murdered. A more sober-minded drama might try to ground in the universe in same mythological and the greedy version of the past, or play on the gravity of its most famous historical figure. House of Ashur give us the jollies, yes, that one casual jacket and the wild black blonde locks and the improbable castle and the new line and the TikTok influence chilling of a Brave Hills Sapa, the ghost profile in ancient coin. It works because this is not the kind of show that needs to you buy. This version of the Crasher is literally factually accurate. This is the kind of the show that just wants to get to what's stable worth little shit in his. And but House of Ashur's surface left out gorgeous and should not be mistaken by the legends or the sloppiness of the contrast in the undergirded by the surprisingly Saturday and storytelling. Its larger plot takes its time to set that new development for organic and earned rather than poured in. The screenwriter despairs of the defense. Achillia does not become a worthy champion over it and by earns to place by bit over the gallings in the house and process, reminding the priestly house flourishing and or ordeal in the shore machination failings of the first main. It all the sweeter that all the beer fruit sense and understand how hard won even the minor victories are. Well, that and because we have seen to exactly and the against Ashur played with the delicious bombers by the Tarabay is one the me's good guy and the arrogant Mariguel and self-intolerant by the bristles as reminder of his formerly low status, but then turns around and this is one slaves including staunchly loyal Batman Helera Jomesa and with Collius disgraced by his easy to rove in the world populated by the likes of Costia and Claudia Black, wonderfully wicked and the Plocush and vicious novel by plot to make an example of these outsided poliers, the pure waiters and the Republic list on not alias the hateful and idea about social mobility. House of Ashur turns remains in the cheerful hotness takes a register of now of all the death and the battle on display. It is not really but your Yukala profitable moving experience, but there are hints of more potentially emotional storylines to come, including what plugs a pigment backstory for Achillia, as well as an expected tender relationship for the shore gazers and the gladiator trainer chorus of formidable Graham MC Travis. Granted, none of these nascent subplots have paid dividends yet, and I said this series like to take its time, but it's promising that House of Assures, so we understand that it is the newest and the players that draw in the first, it's a growth attachment to this character and the release that will keep us on the hook. And why we will wait? We will wait and while it on assure you will never very far from opportunity to do your best impression of a Roman citizen, Caesar 16th and something BS and the rise up on your living room shouting for a sword wielding gladiator to kill, kill, kill. Spartacus House of Ashur has a double take Rotten Tomatoes score. Spartacus is one of my favorite action shows ever, so much so that is inspired one of my book series, so it heard it was returning for more was exciting news. But how it was returning was bizarre and the kind of hilarious. The new show is Spartacus House of Ashur, focusing on the violence and the character from the original series. What worries about that character gets spin-off series all the time, right? Well, in this case, Spartacus ended with Ashur getting and beheaded, so in this going to work exactly. The concept is just okay. What if that did not happen? That's the long and short of it. This is just some alternate timeline because who cares why Ashur is a great character and Spartacus was a great series. So let's just bring up back and run with it. Here's the synopsis. Spartacus House of Ashur explores a what-if scenario. What Ashur Nick Tarabay survives the event of the Vegans and is rewarded with the gladiator school at once served. The series follows his rise to power as a dominus in the brutal world of the Roman gladiator, and a path is taken with the help of figures gladiators named Achillia. The show premiered on the December 5 on Starz, but reviews are the coming in. Those reviews have at present produced by 100% Rotten Tomatoes score for the show. I gotta say, not exactly what I was expecting. Don't get me wrong, I love the origins, but they are not exactly highbrow and the critics pleasing entertainment. But looking back to the 2010 to 2013, when the original series artists and the 4 season, including one prequel season, that show was not scoring the high we had. Spartacus Blood and Sand season 52%, Spartacus God of the Arena season 2 73%, Spartacus Vengeance season 3 not enough reviews for a score, Spartacus Wars of the Diamond season 4 69%, Spartacus House of Ashur Pre-Real Universe season 5 one guess 100%. Granted they are not on the reviewing yet, but these dudes are efficient. Here the Robert@.com is the offer a rarity is the world where the prequels and robotics thread the staple or the originality, a spin-off series that only honors the legacy of its predecessor but one that time revival it variety. Overall, Spartacus House of Ashur is a dynamic follow-up to previous chapter, a classic tale of the have and have not, the ancient Rome where power means everything. Dark Knight world is an assisting as ever. The rap in making Achillia a woman who is scared both the physical and emotional and created showrunner executive producer Steven as Dark Knight and his writer has flourished out in the character who could have just been a plot turned into that is a welcome addition. So not that many reviews, but this is a major outlet climbing in and all in the 10 episode and season will arrive this Friday December 5 on the Starz, and clearly it's not one to be missed. Even you have to subscribe to Starz. Spartacus House of Ashur review. There are moments in television where the sand shifts, the heavens crack open, and audiences are reminded regularly and forcefully on the power of the mythic storytelling. In the early 2010s, Starz Spartacus were exactly that kind of the lightning strike. It was bold, it was dominated, it was unapologetical and operatic with the late Andy and Whitefield and successor Lame, Melitron leading and the charge. The saga of the Thracian rebel burned its way into the pop culture, leaving a trail of the blood, tears, and trumpet in all week. And once Spartacus, War of the Diamond, closed the chapter on the legendary rebellion, many believed the tale was sealed in the annals of the television history forever. But the gods apparently had other plans. Through the cunning and the creative attitude of this race, creator Steven as Dark Knight and the world of Spartacus returns, but not as expected, not as a retreated, not as a more restoration. Instead, it arrives reborn in the flame and fury as a what it and saga of the stretching ambition. This is Spartacus House of Ashur, a restless new vision of the Roman world, and it is without question any of the most badass, intoxicating, and the adhesions premiere of the year, with blood, decant, and political venom, and the towering character transformation. And House of Ashur registered the franchise with backline and the force, and at the center of it all, Ashur, the Serena, the snake of survived and new, and now for the first time the parent and because the master. Set after the defeat of the Spartacus in the original series, House of Ashur poses the question: what if violence Serena had not died on the Mount Vesuvius of the end of the Spartacus vengeance, and what if he had been gifted the gladiator school once owned by the Batiatus in the return for aiding the Romans in killing Spartacus and putting end to the slave rebellion. And the boldest and the decision House of Ashur makes and instantly evaluate into the must-watch territory at its core primes and the divergent timeline where the cunning Serena slave Ashur need a Tarabay sources a moment of the perfect treasury and the end's life of Spartacus himself. In this alternate history, fate in the rewritten Ashur claims victory, and his ambition does not go to unrewarded, and evaluated by none other than Marcus Crassus, Seaman Marshal, and the Ashur is granted state wealth and domination. Now the Lancita of the newly christened House of Ashur is a Capua that stands in the position he never dreamed possible, and must navigation and the treacherous labyrinth of the Roman aristocracy to keep it. The series wastes no time diving into the span time and the political of the Roman elite, and the power is endless fast, and every participant is ready to step through the table. This is where House of Ashur electries of the screen. Dark Knight takes everything audiences love about the original series: gladiator, spectacle, more depravity, more dramatic thriller, and the powers into the rose sharp examination of the political manipulation, class ambition, and the intoxicating and pull of power. The rebellion may not be buzz and focus the time and word of the control, just a force, and Ashur once a raid in the walls and fight of the wolf and the door. Nick Tarabay has always and one of the great sensationals of the Spartacus franchise, and Ashur was a masterclass in the slimy Christmas and the violent, delightfully hateful, and the vicious every moment shielded across the screen. But here evaluated, the Tarabay dominates with the magnitude and feels like the only natural evolution of everything he was before, and becomes the underdog, the scammer, and the survivor, the master in this new story, the unlikely protagonist. And Tarabay performance and rich layered deep cunning and its time unexpected, vulnerable, and words manipulation like a blade as the couriers, the brutal soul of a man, and clawed his way off the dirt as entire life, and refuses to all back into watching him maneuver through Rome's and alias, outthinking and the outplaying and the outsending everything in his path is addictive television, pure and the simple. This is a character who once loved to hate. Now, in a devastating twist of the narration and the genius, we root for him. Tarabay commands every second of the screen. He is the pulse of the House of Ashur and absolutely delivers. This is new series introduces a host of bold and present character, further expanding the intrigue, the world of House of Ashur. Graham MC Travish and delivers a titan of the performance as the chorus, the doctor of the House of Ashur, a former champion of the Renaissance, and the freeman absorbed with the honor, grit, and the unwavering loyalty as Ashur informs and the consoler, the balanced rotor force, the wisdom, and gives the series grounded style, engaged gravity. Jodie Weber rebels and the electric groans in the torture, the golden boy of the House of Ashur as gladiator hanged for glory, abhorred by the crowd and despaired to carve his name in his history, shrouding him in his father Gladiatus Dan Hamill as seasoned and the warden of the arena who carries both pride and power for his wounds further. Their dynamic is one of the show's most emotional portions and arc. Jomaisa Wagon and the Ivana Baquero as the mistress of the desire and jealousy. Wagner as a Hydra and Baquero brings sensual fire and emotional complexity to the role of Ashur Ashur devoted and mistrust their devotion, jealous ambition, and the reality, and they create a swirling storm of the erotic tension and the political intrigue within the walls of the ludus, and both actors relish and every second. But if there is a broke out star within House of Ashur, it is unquestionably Tecna Davis and Achillia, champion gladiatrix of the house. She is a force of the nature, ruthless, proud, and driven by the hunger of revenge and recognition, and her arc the brutal blasting and the artillery's command, and she is bringing the freely intensity to the arena, the match, the best worries of the original stress. The destinies of the House of Ashur are contrasted with the rolling Rome, Elliot resulting in the plenty of dramatic moment as the aesthetic overworld of the Capua reveals just how the dangerous and the debauched by Ben and the Claudia Black deliver venture with the Gladys and Costia and Santres wife with the taste of courtesy and the winter against the shore. She is providence and not personality, and very senses appear in the tiles nose and around House of Ashur, while India Shaw Smith as her elegant daughter and Warida as a fascinating constant and ignores with the becomes dangerously engaged with Ashur and presents performance a future of forbidden and romance, political risk, and explosive scandal. Adding in intriguing edge of the House of Ashur in the return of Jolie's cashier, the wolf of the crosses himself, Jack Nunn, and the Galahad delivers a performance of cashier marked by the Swedish arrogance and the lethal charm and the solid violence of the redness and the ready to strike his rival, and the strange snap with a shore and a rose sharp edge to the slaves. This design is powered to match by the cunning and the captivating wife Cornelia, and the Cornelia is the unlimited anticost of the Roman Republic on the aesthetic and new woman and the unstable and the appetite for the vice and indulgence, and together the acid and the Nancy of Rome, two beautiful monsters, and the dancing of the edge of the domination. Their hardening clothes evaluate the show's direction and the decision to delirious new height. Spartacus House of Ashur has a significant legacy to uphold, and the successful delivered on both the violence and the sensuality that fans expect from the original stage. Blood flows freely in the arena and the streets of Capua, which are interest and the Bordeaux led to unearthing of the sword. The production team once again present the incredible geography of death and the violence that will thrill audiences, which action is sharp and engaged. This particle of gladiatorial violence is matched only by that series every gant of display the erotics at all manners and expressions of the flesh and explode, catering a wide range of the erotic and taste. There are a vast storage and the ample nudity that everything taken to new heights of the exciting expression. However, despite its visual splendor, both the violence and sex serve storytelling and purposes. These elements showcase and various themes such as a sure desire to connection with his mistress Hilra and the Messiah, the expression, dominance, and the power exhibited by cashier Cornelia, and the serene love shared between the Tarchon and Jodie Weber and the Elliot Edenhart, and the woman the poses but can never ruth, and ultimately the combination of violence and the eroticism make this series an even more the captivating match. Audiences will feel the thriller of the crowd and the spectacle of arena as stubborn as Track Night, and the Nick at Tarabay announced the vibrant and the return of the Roman Republic in the Spartacus House of Ashur. Fully impresses the files and legacies of the beloved and story effort on the exciting futures as well returning of the sand of the past. This series engage intense, violent, sexy, and a complete experience of pure melodramatic fun. Spartacus House of Ashur is violent, sexy, operatic, political, sharp, character-driven, and absolutely adjective, and it honors the legacy of original by carving it on ruthless past forever powered and to Tarabay cast by the performance and a world teeming with the danger, darkness, ambition, and blood. The Roman Republic roars once more, and the sand of the Capua are hungry, and with House of Ashur and ghosts have granted it as a gift of Carangan passion and pure television spectacle. Starz returned to form with brutal and brilliant spin of Spartacus House of Ashur. It's been 12 long years since Starz's Spartacus ended on a brutal and glorious high note, and after 2 years since it was initially announced, the show's first spin-off series is finally here. Unlike many prequels or sequels, Spartacus, the House of Ashur takes place in alternate future, with the titular character played by Nick E. Tarabay survived instead of meeting his demise in season 2. It's a strange premise, and with the nearly every single character in the original show dying by so its final season. Taking liberties like this is only way for this property to the continue. Thankfully, by the end of the 5 episodes that were supplied for critics, you cannot help with the Mitch and the Spain of did the same. In this universe, Ashur not only survived the Battle of the Mount Vesuvius but also becomes an integral figure in the rebellion's collapse. In a shocking blow, it's revealed that Ashur not only added in the Spartacus and white-fed lambs and the damage, but the himself landed the final blow that led to the man's death. Because of his new leading, man is no longer slave and has instead found himself running the same ludus that won on him, now overseeing the own group of gladiators. Despite Ashur rising in the world, this is cannot outweigh his previous reputation. Looked down upon the wealthy inhabitant of the Capua and frustrated by the gladiators that are not up to par. Ashur is a disgrace and a built new legacy. After his most promising gladiator is killed in the arena, a woman named Achillia, Technon Davis, catches Ashur's eyes after the fight of 3 Roman soldiers while shagged in the Chinese, seeing great promise in her, and despite the make in the arena, he takes her in and demands that he has trained with the gladiator, yet the woman's presence with the ludus, innocent and the passion in the man, but the apathy refused to pair it with her during training. Mock her and often attempt in kept physical violence upon her, though the men are threatened by the sure instance and she is a part of their brotherhood. Achillia keep her wits and about her trains harder with them in all attempt to win her freedom. We are all of us but slaves to means of possession, Ashur tells her, comparing to them of the pieces in a game that bigger than them, and the statement, though not unlike one is would have made in the Spartacus, is delivered with an unexpected sincerity. Unlike man we were introduced to many years before, the still remains canning. Ashur seems to actually care about the people around him in the alternate reality. Yes, the success of his house and the legacy of his name prevail above all, but not get there is understand that must work with the people by his side rather than ostracize and the scheme against them. Tarabay is captivating throughout the series, which has expanded his character emotional depth, allows the character to tap into the sensitivity the previously lacked. With Davis, the two command the screen each time they are not on, and so they are his character appeared together. Despite many, he is cured and the house of new residents, and the shore is unable to escape his performance and the position in eyes of these around him, just like Achillia. And while he is not only respected by the gladiator in his hall, he is completely rejected by the other master of their houses, doomed to reside in limbo between his past life and new one as he is desperate to create for himself. This is where the nickship and between the two is born. Just he is called the Saria, and rather than his name she is also referred to as Nebian and by her folly gladiator. Both of character exists outside the realm what is deemed proper in this society, and the othering forces upon them stands in the way of gaining any advantages. Yet this brings forth an unwavering bond between them, one that shakes the foundation of their house and threatens to bring forth a new age in this world that most of the inhabitants are not ready for. Like its predecessor, the show is all the best when it appears to unlike character, whether the relationship is polyandric, romantic, although it takes the ensemble cast to bid again and voting Graham MC Tavish, who plays the show's Dr. Corris, and the father-son gladiator duo Collidus and the Tharshan, and because more the fascinating with each episode stretches together group of characters who feels like a diversion family. When Spartacus was originally airing in the 2000s, stands at social commentary and the inclusion of sex and the quiet character felt revolutionary. It displayed this aspect unablished and anything else airing in the time no over the decade later in the television landscape that threatens to become more conservative with each passing year. This spin-off series does not disappoint in returning to its roots. Yes, the action scenes are all still rife with slow motion. Spartacus House of Ashur and offer as a rarity in a world where the prequel and Roberts and the threaten to stifle of originality of spin-off series that not only honor of legacy of its predecessor but one that time that rivals it. Spartacus' House of Ashur. Ashur, the fellow who was brutally debacation in the second season of the Seven as Deck Knight's historical drama series Spartacus 2012. Oh well, he has alive again when thanks to an acknowledged yet deeply absurd plot device unveiling and his simply astrous and highly convenient resurrection cherished god of the unworld and Nick E. Tarabay Chesley's character returned with every attention of the releasing and his own company of honest enslaved fighter onto the sand of the gladiator arena. His sacred weapon, an unknown gladiatrix Achillia, who has nothing to lose and everything to prove to earn for freedom. That being said, peril is hard to conjure in the world where anyone can be brought back into the being by Pluto and his math. Empowered and the significant female character are not something alien to the Spartacus universe to date. This show returned the precedent of the utter corsets and the sure valiant and not be the shade away from the every angel of the crudeness, laughing and nudity, violence, gore and more is the categorically overexplored striving to walk and away through the gross troughs and the sparrowfish interrogate rather than attempt to do so through such as novel and the approach as well. A developed character or an arresting narrative, the character may actually say something if you are not throwing in the quiet so many bombs. The script is particularly interesting case. The character may favor deeds to world and but profanity strength and the folk Shakespeare and the delights in their take actually that not only the effective and matches the surety of the very evident computer assist creation of the visual world. Additionally, the fight scene of there is a fair few and the cinematically engaged and amusingly geographed and all matter considered Spartacus House of Ashur is as ridiculous as its cheering earned in the intent of portray the epic of all as whether the show's creator intent of his emergence a greatly protected 300 with all the bodies and brooding and the batting and of course the aunt and dogs that has used on the panned out and does not lend itself to the ministries. With no shortage of blood and lust, Spartacus' House of Ashur is exactly what fans expect. Everything is a matter of taste and most people knew that they like. If you are not already abroad, the Spartacus Express of which Spartacus House of Ashur is the fifth installment and the first since 2013. You should know in the short order whether it makes of soft porn and the graphic violence and the scrabbling for the power is your goblet of wine. In this Robert Polited and again the stubborn Aztec Knight and the premiering Friday on Starz Ashur Nick and Tarabay, who has a bad and bad guy in the previous race killed by the Spartacus of Mount Vasians find himself in the underworld facing loose and lawless returning for a como as a Lucteria who expects the story and send him back to the earth in a timeline where he killed Spartacus instead of reason given or how to it being managed and pursued and the sure wakes up in the bed and the body slaves Hilra and Jumessa Wagner and the Messiah and as the boss of Ludus school for gladiator where the once was employed by the Lucteria husband and not a very pleasant boss either. All that business with the Spartacus and his slave rebellion is done. There is some political backdrop to the show with Pompey and the Graces going at each other off-screen and the amusingly narcissistic Jolisac cashier and dropping in the draw attention to himself but at least for the 5 episodes out of 10 available to review. House of Ashur is mostly a sort of show business story as Ashur attempts to get his job in the big time while the banking on the unstaged newcomer call it gold diggers of the 71 BS with the sex and blood. The newcomers in Achillia, Techna Davis as the new enslaved and Nubian Ashur finds down the docks taking apart the guards in her lust of freedom. She is the Spartacus of the Spartacus. But the boys at Ludus and the ranked nobility include descent by the Gladius and his hot-headed son Dorchan and are not kept to admit the woman to their rank and their doubly pivot. The shore is keeping her into the headline and the role for her part. She has got lot of learning to do. Trainer Chorus, Graham, MC Tavish and the presence and you had to merge one to your side maybe the help. Ashur does not actually tell her you are going out on the younger but you have got to come back to a star as a Warner Baxter side to Robbie Keeler but its idea is roughly the same. Ashur jungling for the spot on the bill of the big arena brings him into the contact with the hoi polloi of the Capua to and down where the story takes place, they generally regard him as something to avoid stopping in that he is an ex-slave and the Syrian home people call the Syrian does not have this gang includes revival, popcorns and simi, a bluster and the Tory of Deadline, Little People, Snatter, Gabnius and Real Housewife of the Capua, Costia, Claudia Black and there is lovely young daughter Warida and Indian Cho Smith who has been hauled by him and home since the death of her husband in the Spartacus Wars. The dialogue appears crafted to set a world record for the profanity perfectly, the one's adjective and the people used by begins with F. At the same time, there is a sort of the Shakespearean slate, too much of it. Many lines in my random examination revolved into the I'm big and the Pantheon's most nobility. There is an attempt to mirror Latin grammar by the omitting articles and the possessive pronouns. We stray from the point, what do eyes behold? It is a cute and nonchalant idea that just make to cracker of the comical. There is no article in the Russian either, but not add them when we translate Chakwa or as Vanja and the Valen, and you had sound like Boris and Natasha. And the original Spartacus Blood and Sand did not both with this device, and they did not and did have to character saying gratitude for the thanks and apologies for sorry. The series takes is a melodrama and the series with the evident dedication at staging a complicated fight scene of which are many and the investment in set and costumes and the effect the fake blood budget alone must be staging the domestic architect and the coding with the life in ancient Roman videos. I have been known to watch the means and the wild paintings which had the cost of more and the detect the eyes from the oryx and yet so extreme in its violence and so resolute in its nightmares, and I also find this series kind of the hilarious. It possible does not have the whenever I hear the name and Spartacus I think of Tom address code declaring I am Spartacus in the that thing you do, and some time of Magnus shaving the Spartacus the athletic superhero of the 2004 kid show lesser known, but that's no son me. Spartacus House of Ashur review 12 years after its final Starz rescued ended Game of Thrones replacement with an epic sequel. Spartacus House of Ashur is an unrelenting sword and sandal epic worthy of its predecessor, filled with his backed gladiatorial combat, political plotting, and the sequel appetites that underpins a desire for the power. The Starz sequel series cued a swath through audience expectations. Creator Steven S. Decknard, best and known for producing the superior Daredevil adaptation on Netflix, Superheads and the return to Roman melodrama and the refuse to hold back, unleashing a hyper-stylish web intrigue, and the audiences will thought the House of Ashur would lack backbone. This return to home trough of Straven Deck as night indulged and every want and desire to audience could imagine depicting unbridled and the blood-taking and the family infighting among those in and out of the arena. This shows the right with the overstretches, the peace and bold brazen proclamation of the intelligence and the alongside movement of the slaughter in slow motion. It is neither for the meek nor mad. House of Ashur rarely traders in the subtlety, letting language and off of the chain that is both poetic and the profane as it welcomed Nick Tarabay back from the dead. Ashur is most unlike Athonior. For the new web familiar with the legacy of Spartacus on Starz, the precursor of the Game of Thrones carved out of unique niche in the popular culture, dominating television for the 3-season run. They may have proved unpopular among cities but found audiences much more receptive, and 15 years after Spartacus season 1, House of Ashur arrives with all the conniving intent of the Roman general plotting and the accession, starting with the arrival of Ashur himself in one of the most convoluted plot twists ever and to grace a small screen. In the role of Ashur, Nick Tarabay takes the new lease of life, literally drawing up the plans into the opening episode that new audiences might struggle with going into the series without background knowledge. Please heed this word of warning, motivation, aspirations, and the vendettas will only be become the clear after the several episodes, leaving audiences with nothing but the scene and the joy of Ashur entertaining them initially. However, for those and who do go to distance, Spartacus House of Ashur offers an ample reward. Among this committee ensemble, there is a distinct sense of one upmanaged, starting with the headliner Tarabay, who has been playing Ashur for a long time. It feels as a natural and breathing, acting as both the discipliner and the protector. Ashur's goal, his gladiator in the art of combat. It is a solid performance prepared with the surprising nuance that the single-handed and walk the thin between the variants valiant and the creatures and the technique that seems like the overacting until an audience realize Spartacus House of Ashur thefts on the approach. Both beholden to jealousy, cashier, and everything Rome represented, yet standing up proud to establish his own identity. Tarabay's performance weighs between the political progist and the supervenient subject in the restored, and audience will release this is whole House of Ashur together. And since this recruited son of Rome is both a savvy manipulator of the human nature and knows how to work the system from within, and for the season Ashur represents the most unlikely anti-hero in the assemble and yet earns to outright by the end. Potentially only the presence of the Graham Tavish as chorus gave his dominance a run of the many, and it come to claiming that title. Chorus proves to be formidable ally. Depending on your passion, Graham Tavish and will either the familiar to audience who love the Hobbit trilogy to Netflix feature adaptation. As an actor, he is synonymous with the quality television shows from the House of Dragons and the Outlander, making him a perfect for the role of the chorus in Spartacus House of Ashur. Right hand man to the dominus and trusted all the time of adversity as both meditator and the confident chorus is unmatched when it comes to treading the room for his closest front, and the overall masculine in the denominator college bring a degree of heavy-handed diplomacy to his series, and it pivotal in having a sure navigated Roman etiquette, and audiences will quickly become embroiled in the cloak and the dagger aspects for his formidable view and who carry forward with the Roman high society purely to satisfy ambition. With a cool head and the ferocious fighting skills, this glorified entertainer lives on the inbuilt work on the show, embracing a degree of risk in his direction that falls in line with the liberal perspective Romans had around intimates. For an actor who has often played characters defined by their maleness, courage is a departure from the fields more inclusive than anything MC Tavish has tagged before. However, this aspect of the character is not one made of the calculated reasons such as audience demographics, but one that generally reflects that time in the ancient Rome on one judge for the even look twist. In fact, physical attention was the least interesting part of any person for audience willing to look beneath for the surface of the Spartacus House of Ashur. Gender identity and political, which proved to be a recurring theme with add depth and nowhere more though than in the representation of the women in this series and the role they choose to play. One woman defines Spartacus House of Ashur. Supervillains and the feminated in this edition, and Spartacus was valued above strength and the independence, who has stepped outside those boundaries and upon to ridiculous prodigies and the market and the technical Davis, who has also a smart but memorable part in it. Welcome to Daddy comes front and the center in Achillia in the debut audiences, which have found the subject unlike other women in the House of Ashur who rely on their feminine to gain power and status. Achillia becomes the icon of family empowerment, and the Achillia character is one element the Spartacus. This Spartacus from this example of the subcant expanding the argument around the inclusivity that include blurring lines between the gender identities. Her biggest spotted in the equality of step by with the status quo looking for make their mark in the society and evaluate their endeavors by the involving have directly adding another layer to this melodrama and the challenges audience expectations and explores the centroparts issues. I highlight the shopstic and the storyline by the Steven Deck as Knight and his collective illustration how diverse House of Ashur is really despite first impressions. her refusals and the makes Achillia one of the strongest women in the house of Ashur beyond the bloodletting and the gender stereotype. The inhabited their element of this show. The remains are relationship relatives are one that slowly change the opinion of the around her as the single-minded attitude pays dividend. Achilles slowly begins to undermine this male-dominated society who has started up and the decking notice if only the language and use has been afford that same the attention to detail that Spartacus half sure would have made great rather good television. Is language really one thing that lets Ashur down? Language is where the series drove into ball to point of the distraction overall elaborate wordplay that set out to make audience work undermines a lot of the drama. This Spartacus loses even more ground by the dropping expletive into the very other sentence as is that the made this character more contemporary, exploring rhyming couples that come closer to the Shakespeare and the Chaucer in the complexity make the early episode and the uphills struggle. Even when the audiences have become the accustomed to unique flow of the conversation between the character, House of Ashur still provides challenging. If anything, this reliance of the overall elaborate language draws attention to their inconsistencies that may have to slipped by the unnoticed and set drawings between the location and either of the sound gates of the as we are very widely alongside in considerations in the visual effect. It will bruise the bubble for some audiences who let their attention dread during the dialogue scene, unloading the good work and which has more come before. And however, that inconsistency will be easily overlooked with Spartacus House of Ashur is viewed by the avid fans. There is such as a solid fan base for the Spartacus that its sequel has little of worry about. Tarabay has barely aged a day in the 12 years since the original final and any evidence of it only the work to its advantage and hope people hankering after the revival feel like House of Ashur is homecoming. This is the Atheora who not only gets that shows the redemption had been earned himself and whole new show that the looks to recapture and the spirit of 2013 but updated it for new generation. However, these audiences will stumble into the show by accident and but past the language barrier might just be surprised by this new incarnation as well as much as the possible. House of Ashur aims to the please of fan base and the faithful, but it leaves the tip that contemporary culture acknowledging the fact that things have to move into the terms audience attitude and the republic perception that might be slaughter a plant in the arena among that blood and sand by Spartacus. House of Ashur knows that even the dominance brought back from the dead post of that time. Review Spartacus leaves again with House of Ashur. Good morning, what's Arslan watching is predominantly as a solo venture, but my great pal and the great critic Maureen Ryan asked if I had any interest in the publishing her review of Spartacus House of Ashur, a spin of the early 2010 Starz drama Spartacus. That was only has been a big blind spot for me and because of Mo's passion for the franchise this seemed like a nice piece of bonus and content for all subscribers free paid both. And if you like this and want to read more of Mo's work, here is on site. She is always hard at work on the betterless gladiatrix book that I am going to read the hello out of onto the Mo's review and I will back Friday morning with my latest publisher and the recap and the traditional Friday newsletters. Spartacus is the unlimited two things that true entity. Spartacus which stormed the TV scene in the 2010 and was revived by the Starz this year is full of profanity, origin, and the moment engaged to go over the top and keep going. As I explained in various party Dawn pieces over the years, if you are a fan of Lucy vibes and the creative Dememorandum in this even the show of you that sad Spartacus is also a Gaussian exploration of class power and exclusion as well as meditation of different kinds of solidity and even nobility. For the past decade and a half, I have watched this amusement and a little frustration as some of my colleagues in my media and have struggled in admit to these seemingly disparate element half-nacked character who has screamed Jupiter cock and who struggle for the true liberation can do to exist with the same show for some critics, and the more drama leans into the optic and side, and the regular does not quite intentionally, the more it breaks their brain as a bit TV. It is not the supposed to combine these things in this unhashed and the honest way. The most expensive full frontal male moderant in all of TV should not coexist with this much respect, and the social commentary as show that the ador's bloody excuse should not contain the invasive indictments of the imperial overreach, but executed producer and the showrunner stubborn act that night, and the love white grand gesture, and also allows his character moment to the vulnerability and inside and readiness frankens the extreme end of the Spartacus are just for and some people to accept at their swords and laws. Spartacus, true to the legacy of the guy who lends his name to this race, simple does not care about the rules. Plastic TV restrained beyond a meme from the Garth Magnan's that plays quotes a character shouting, "I know writer." Who use and subtext, and they are all crowds which kind of the gets and what is those show is doing all that is so Spartacus is one of the kind. It is styles and the soppy and smart. It revels in the brutality and the bloodshed, but it cornered by disconnected as a cartoon. It actually does explode subtext, sometimes quite deafened. It nimbly avoid being a slog, and but it does swag with the cost of the suffering caused by greed and exploitation as it surveys and dictating Rome on the verge of the civil war. Any resemblance to the time and we are endured seemingly entirely intentional. This show is for everyone and sure more program would try to for the kind of the unambitious distinctives, but the drama is for anyone willing to understand that Spartacus absolutely knows that is going for and why. House of Ashur, which arrived on the Starz December 5, strict and worked with the Dark Knight previous incarnation of the Spartacus. The drama keeps things moving braces. The House of Ashur is bit more programmatic and the modulated in the early going. Nick E. Tarabay returns as the Valley Ashur from the fans will recall and the slave who act a fixer in the earlier season of the show. Through a Devon and the delightful machination, the character gets find out that would happen in an alternative reality in which not only lived a different life but for the service to Rome, inherited the gladiator academy of his former master Batiatus, and Ashur is driven straight smart character and given the chance to bring more sides of his life. Tarabay takes passionate advantage of the opportunity. Ashur does not believe in the gods and in the other human being. Truth be told, he believes in what he can grab with his own hand, and actor brings engage intensity and the pieces focus to every scene. Everyone underestimate Ashur will take a challenge a fuel for the relentless and the foiled by the Tarabay also Daffy handles my small comedic moment, him saying to be an obnoxious rich by guy through the greater that you will my hand is a delight. Thing aside from the faithful slave Hill Rajomesa and few care about the whether Ashur quest of success purpose and the title character isolation works against deeper emotional investment in the season early episode all in all, and the attempts in romance for the various characters including Ashur hit or miss in the first half of the season as it formed the chemistry infused the relationship the Groove Doctor embarked on. When we first met Batiatus 15 years ago, viewers understood he was the scammer and capable of brutal and the deceit. We did not and know his fully history of potential. He and his wife Victoria were a pair of the entertaining clean slates. Well, those social clamor were fired and the clean you and get the idea however low they want to in their quest of status, their love of each other and was never in the debut, and the combined with the John Hona and the Lucy Lawless traffic and the performances that studied and the bond made the compulse striving relatives sympathetic. But fans of the drama known quite as a bit more about the guarded Ashur as alone of frequently prioritized and the saving skin of above elves, and thus for House of Ashur there is higher part of the clear when it comes investing more deeply in the title character quest, while House of Ashur out of sight is conflict and the aspiration with the typically energy in the early episode. It take a while for the drama to build up sympathy for Ashur travel. House of Ashur and violence and the barrier spectacle in the 5th episode. Around that, the snooty and the passion jealousy cashier arrives in the Capua with his mean god wife and Cornelia with Swan around if she has the start of the real housewife lives of the Roman and many characters is given rich material. Spartacus, Jackson, Galibers, and the jam is shorter and among the who understandable make a meal of it, and the couple is delightful, hateable. Given how delicious and rude and the concealing they are made, and season arrival gives that a short juicy antagonist to until gains, and the whole narrative kicks through the higher Garrier and others stand out in the subways, and the smart season premiere which features a new character played with the ragged and raw fight for the Tanika Davis. Capua is not Rome, and the shore is not only used to be a slave, she is Sharina, and despite the fact that the Rome is capital of a vast variety empire, its upper crust gatekeepers outside and aggressive sanitary gladiator owner and the member of the local general reminder sure of his lore and the unproven status at every opportunity. As the series opens, he is barely able to grab slot of his fighter as a Ricky and local arena, Ashur household as a lot of mouth of feed, and without a few wins, his time as a free man could be ever almost soon as it began, and Tarabay does an excellent job of the portraying Ashur. Despite ambition, he knows that at the stakes against him and the energy and skill the actor bring to the character machination and the moment of the quiet consideration as a considerable as the narrative build moment, and the Graham MC Tavish and the Claudia Black offer the stellar turns as a respectively assured doctor that man has trained to fight, and the Costia and local worthy of the cannot be stand ashore and cannot avoid him as she makes her way up. Capua, social leader, both actor absolutely understand the assignment and travels the tuna and shift the social highs and the arena low with the ease they are traffic. It takes a while for the gladiator on the sands to become memorable. Few stand out the way Janius, very gratis, and the bringing of rain did in earlier season, but that's party OG separate nostalgia is talking that's the fight in the arenas as well as the crafted and the world as any in the show's past. You do not have to worry that anyone on the Spartacus team forget how to creatively separate fighter for the warrior's body part. For years I have been yelling to anyone who had listened and some who would not the Spartacus portrays man-made Spartacus House of Ashur TV review Blood, Sand and Sacrifice Power. This tale returned to Shakespearean arena drama. Plot. History dares to rewrite itself when the once defeated Ashur is recruited and the returns as a Dominus, the master of his own house, determined to secure his rightful place among the elite. Ashur introduces the first gladiator to the arena, sparking a chain reaction of events unforeseen. Review. It's been more than a decade since audiences felt the sting of blood and sand as only the seven deck night the Spartacus can deliver. Fortunately, those of us starvers for the Shakespearean drama admits the arena as in luck. Spartacus House of Ashur is there and feel like 2000 and again in the best way possible. While on the surface, Spartacus House of Ashur appear to the another blood Oscar arena drama with the enough skin and debauchery to make the colleague jealous and the promise you much more than that, where the show excellent and giving the mature audience with they want when realistically gore for the front nudity and plenty of wine. A House of Ashur offers more, presenting a dual tale of the overcoming adversity, resams and the corruption of power. At House of Ashur, heart or origin in the house, Nick A. Tarabay, the slaver of the Spartacus and dominance of his own house, complete with title a stroke of glory, hungry gladiator, woman and enough drama to fill every seat in the Hollywood arena. Tarabay plays Ashur with a passionate that is sure to be noticed by the god as the actor. Theatrical background sense throw in the character evil and lyric world and Davis action through the show of much more. The Tarabay's tailor and scene shocking and the performance he has reason to tune in. Stealing the slow alongside Tarabay in the mighty bearded Graham MC Tavish who is plays chorus Ashur decor and the stockman as the savage who trains and the manage to gladiators of the House of Ashur. By far the favorite character of on show MC Tavish explores and raged by the playing a queried warrior torn between the heroes between his heart's desire and remaining a perspective man of the community that does not care for his performances. When MC Tavish is not nicking up and sand on the training group and spend much more of his time to operate and influence and player in the arena games and the object of courage repress erection and by the scene MC Tavish and Gibson sure is electric. Their relationship is maybe for the favorite to watch develop in the show as their commitment to passion, the sincerity and the integrity is unmatched. Watch for the lot of the tube and you are know that I mean chill. It was anything and any their player who has deserves to time in the spotlight. The Tanika Davis as Achillia, the goddess of the death as history, and the first gladiator Achillia is a part of the history in the making, accurate by shore and the urge toward the arena. Davis plays Achillia with the forestry most insane given the reality of gladiator content in the popular culture. Physical and emotional Davis in the hyponic and the pulling you toward with the ever your defeat, defiant and sacrifice and dominates a wrestling and the finishing movie. Do not understand and the Chilia last to want to end on the receiving end of the mortar combat life fatal and the plenty of their performances make their way through the blood and the dust including those by Claudia Black, Indian Show Smith and the Dan Hamill. Still the first 5 episodes of the series of more than visuals and the violence and opportunities to create drinking games using the world cook the show's political intro. It also the delicious with every back allied dealing and the same floor shakedown having the consequences the spread throughout of all drops. Someone is always scheming, no one is safe and people move on plans without warning, leaving surprise attack and unexpected went to their own audiences. There is one scheme and the particular that has such a general beginning that I attitude and the gasped and was swore in the surprise. While I have only seen the first 5 episodes of Spartacus House of Ashur, I actually await the chance to see the remainder of these scenes between the shows, the unique, the dialect and the unflinching approach to arena combat and the inclusive about the sex relationship and Prince House of Ashur is a fighting of all cylinders so far. Spartacus, the House of Ashur TV series review. Spartacus, the House of Ashur revives the blood-soaked world of the original series with a blurred alternate history hook. What is the Ashur survived and rose to power instead of dying in the disgrace set after the rebellions. Calpaps in the Remagen's timeline, the series positioned the farmer slave and the scammer not a casual of the history but as the man who helped it, now running the very ludus and that once owned him. Nick A. Tarabay returns as Ashur and the performance once again assure the narrative through not without the complications. The version of the Ashur is neither a full villain nor a convincing hero and that more ability and make him difficult to fool really and two. He is not ruthless enough to embrace the outright and the antagonisms yet the lack of integrity required of the traditional photocons. The result is the character who feels the card between the identities which weakens emotional investment. The situation recast the conversion and the surrounding area in the last of the US adaptation where casting and characterization choices divided audience and the influence critical reception. Here is the issue is less than about the ability and more about the alignment and let bears the miscast of the weight of the roles physical and symbolic demands. Opposite him stand to Danica Davis and the Achillia as a definite warrior about the introduction and the immediately commands attention. Second and the outmember and the fight with the patience and the intensity earning her place within the gladiatorial rank with the visible strength and the discipline. Davis delivers a performance grounded in the vindication and the may see in the theatres and outside the central figure. The same can be said for much of the sporting cast. A standout among them in the Graham MC Tavish, courage, assure physicians and the quiet stakers MCTV bring weight and the restraint to role crafting the character who understand the power not through the spectacle but through the patience and the intellectual. Chorus operates in the shadows of the ludus and observing weakness, damaging with myriad prisoners and the serving as both conflict and subtitles and the manipulator. He expanses and stabilizes the narrator whenever political tension threatened to overshadow and character dynamics. MC Tavish control the performance, added the gravity and in several by key changes the command and the screen will minimal dialogue providing the influence in the world world is not always forgot in the arena. One of the larger challenges lays in the physical capability, where the sheer intelligence and the manipulation remain believe his combat pros are in the header of the accept in a franchise built on the versatile and arena dominance. Audience and expect the central figure of the project physical threat, and that the expectation is only the particular mat, making the several fight sequences less convincing than intended. The series is guided by the Steven's Dark Knight, whose previous work on the Spartacus and the defined his operatic tone and the apologetic intensity. His influence in the clear. The shows the written styles show motion and violence heightened the sequence scenes and the chart political undercurrent, and the ones made the franchise stand apart. The arena battle remained kinetic and the dungeons in the dramatic flair and the geographic brutality. The camera lines on the Spartacus Empire's muscles and the seal to blur with the deliberate with the theatrical despite character concern. The craftsmanship and behind the action sequences and visual presentation remains store. And Spartacus, the House of Ashur, ultimately skate in the positioning the aesthetic identity of the franchise. It delivered the same blend of the graphic combat, pursuit depth, and the power struggle that definite its predecessor. Viewers will value the series of its bold styles and the applied intensity and operatic storyline with find much to appreciate, though seeing a deeply related central hero may struggle with his addition of the shore. The show thrives on the atmosphere and the ensemble strength of the dance of the Spartacus brand that may be reason enough to return to the arena. Spartacus House of Ashur concealed after one season. Starz has revealed the fate of his Spartacus spin-off Spartacus House of Ashur. Deadline reports that Spartacus House of Ashur has been concealed after only one season, though alongside the television in the process of trying to secure an anything network of streaming services that could potentially save the series. Aside from low viewership and the factor that led to his cancellation, the Starz does not own House Ashur. Lionsgate and owned the network for 9 years until May 2025, so it was on not only in-house production, making the financial situation more difficult. Steven's Dark Knight, who had to work on the shows and the Buffy and the Vampire Slayer and Angel Smiley and the Dollhouse, and the created Spartacus, which premiered in 2010 and the year until 2013. After the first season, which was the subtitle Blood and the Sand Dark Knight, and the Star developed in a 6-episode prequel called the Spartacus God of Arena, is a response to Star's Andy Whitworth cancers and diagnosis after the actor died in 2011. Lem Melintron replaced him as a Spartacus for the remaining 2 seasons, which were the called Vagnus and the War of the Diamond, respectively. Throughout it runs, and the Spartacus, which earned a 64% critic score on the Rotten Tomatoes, ranked by the nominations at the Creative Arts Emmys, SAG and Award and People's Choices Award, and won by the supporting actor on the television Lucy Lawless and the Best DVD Blu-ray TV series at the Saturn Award. After the series ended, Dark Knight moved on the show that the Dreadweight and the Jupiter Legacy returned to Gladiator world in the 2025 with the spin-off which raw Nick and Tarabay played the same role Ashur he had on the original series. Spartacus House of Ashur explored the alternate storyline in which Ashur did not die on the Mount Vesuvius during Spartacus season 2. Tarabay House of Ashur co-starred and included Graham MC Tavish, Technic Davish, Claudia Black, Jomisa and Vegana, Levna Barako, Leggy Gill, Jordi Webber and Indian Shaw Smith. Aside from the creating series, Dark Knight also served as producer alongside Rich Javison and Orana helping Garen Valley and Jolene Sabo. The first day only the season of House of Ashur premiered in December 2025 and the reign of 10 episodes. The series final, which aired in early February 2026, ended with Ashur killing Ashur following the intense battle. Right after the season ended, Dark Knight revealed that he had already written the scripts of the second season and felt reality confident that Starz would renew the series. He also said the cast and crew could not wait to return the New Zealand to continue the story. Spartacus House of Ashur's major deaths and future addressed. Spartacus House of Ashur Season 1 final shocked viewers with a brutal twist. The last episode, Hale Cassier breaks off into the own alternate timeline by having Ashur, Nick Tarabay take the life of Julius Cassier Jackson and ensuring that Season 2 will be unlike and story the audience has ever heard before about these iconic historical figures. Caesar was not the only character who died in the Spartacus House of Ashur explosive first season. Calidus Dan Hamel also met his demise in the episode 8. He was forced to fight in the arena in place of Achillia after the god injured. Unfortunately, he was outmatched and ended up getting killed by the unnamed female Scythian gladiator. Screen runs Tantia Hollander interviewed Steven as Tech Knight and the Davis for the Spartacus House of Ashur Season 1 final. During the discussion, the due break about the and brutal final moment of the first chapter. Achillia's final battle in the Spartacus House of Ashur. Davis described the filming of her showdown against the Scythian. The actor compared the Battle of David and the Goliath story. He explained the symbolic weight of her final below. She said that it represented more than just a physical victory. It is about the Achilles breaking free from fear and taking back control of her own life. I feel like we all know that the story of David and Goliath, right? You have always got this big giant in front of you that's supposed to be scary and intimidating, so that blow is a lot more than chopping off head. It is the moment that she says, I refuse to have this thing that bring and scary hold me back in a way anyway. It's that moment where she is finally able to say, I cut off the past and everything it's limited from, and it is the blow of her strength and her power coming to frustration and her understanding that she is embarking on the brand new journey on her terms. Achilles' grief unlocked her strength. Davis shared her broadcast moment from the first season. She revealed that Achillia confronting the terrifying Ammonius in the episode 5 was particularly meaningful. She explained that filming the intense fight allowed her to see only the character's strength and the realizations, but also her own. The actress suffered and died while she was filming the scene, but she powered through and did on the incredible job with the scene. I think there have been several broadcast moments, but one is episode 5 where Achillia was terrified saying that Ammonius came out. I think everybody knows that fear where it's like, wait a minute, we did not prepare for this at all. Going through that fight, I go to the find her strength, her power, her reliance, and her ability not to let the past hold her own down. In that moment, she looks down and she has the flashback image of the something from her past, but it is still able to stand up and overcome. That was the broadest and moment that I have had on the set, because my stepfather actually passed away during filming, and it was while I was filming those episodes. To be able to stand up and to proud and fight through that experience just as many my character fought through the difficult circumstances was a moment that really hit the loudest and her hardest for me in the best way possible. Davis also spoke about the impact of Callidius' death on Achillia. She said that loss was devastating for her character. Callidius was a source of the stability for her, and it was a huge blow to have her partner snatched and away from her. However, the actor added the tragedy and was also an important part of her journey of self-discovery. Screen rant Callidius' death was a huge blow of Achillia. Who did she feel and not being when it happened and not going to say goodbye? Taking Davis, I am still hit by the death of the Callias on that show, because her bonding with him and having that relationship was a layer in the personality that she did not expect. That's why she found her vulnerability, her ability to be able to feel a little bit safe, her ability to be able to feel sexual and feminine before the dealing with something enemy and the dangerous and the scary. For her to lose the character that embodied all that for her was the devastating, but it is also just more obstacle she have to overcome in the order to find her inner strength. Sometimes we project our strength into the people when she need to find that inside. I think that she's still going on to journey to find out where those pieces lie within her. Screen rant the moment of the passion between the Achillia and the Torchon. I would rather unexpected what was going through her mind in that moment, and what was your to approach filming the scene. Tanika Davis grieving is such a difficult process. When I look at the Achillia's arc, it's about reclaiming agency and the rewriting the narrative. and why does she do that? The moment on the surface level, both of them are gravy and have gone through something traumatic. They have spent a season hating the living crap out of each other as our antagonists, but I think that's something, and the thing we had the most care actually the part of the ourselves that we have not really come to terms with yet. So I think that's more of the mutual understanding where both of them realize that this judgment and his hatred and the fueled by something much deeper. I think that's why the passion comes from the because they are able to really see each other for the first time. It was hard filming that moment was torture. I have never had a more animalistic and the passionate sex scene ever done in my career, but I am grateful to Jodie Weber for going to that place with me and creating a such safe container so that we could experience that together. It's a testament to him as an actor that we were able to create the fulfillment of the moment together. Screen run, do you think that could be a long-term relationship in the store for them, or will the shadow of the careers always between them? Tanika Davis, oh, you are just going to have a continue to watch the show or figure that one out. That's the carrot that you are danning in the front of right now. I am excited to find out. I think as actors we are always discovering things and always exploring where our characters are going to be. But it's true to life that we do not always know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we have no idea what's going to happen between these two. People just have to keep on watching the show to find out. Screen front, what are the most important ways Ashur and Achillia's dynamic has evolved from the start of the season to the final? Tanika Davis, I think they start off this journey with Ashur and seeing something in the Achillia that she really did not even see in herself. The strength and power within herself to become the goddess of the death. By the end, you are not equals, but they have an understanding of their parallel journeys. It is almost like a meeting of two minds that see themselves and the undergoes who rise above and figure out a way to navigate it very challenging circumstances and refine themselves in a world that did not really want them. I think that's what their journey will continue to be because they have an understanding of just why they have chosen to go on this path together. Screen part, when you read the script, what did you think of the moment that Ashur kills Cassier as the ending point? Tanika Davis, the way that it was cutting between them, I thought that, oh my gosh, for him to take down that character reveals him literally every single person on the show is fighting for their survival. It is a story of the resilience and the survival and reclaiming your power. So that's what I saw it as, and I saw Ashur reclaiming his power and saying, you are not going to talk crop about and anymore. You are not going to put in my this scenario. I am going to figure out a way to how to rise above that. So I am interested to see where that goes. Dark Knight breaks down the major change in Spartacus House of Ashur Season 1. Dark Knight, creator of Spartacus House of Ashur, revealed that one of the biggest changes in the show involved Torchon and the Calidus originally, and that two were not written as father and son. Starz actually suggested the idea, and as a result, the dynamic between the characters changed entirely. He explained that this shift added more depth to the story. He also addressed Ashur and decision to something Galbinius, explaining that he is consumed with guilt and hates himself because of it. However, he kept those feelings to himself. He also discussed Ashur's standing within Roman society, stating that class prejudice and ensures he will never truly be expected. The romantic tension between the Ashur and the Viridia and further complicated things, especially after the caught him kissing Hilera. Dark Knight tasted that character would have to deal with the consequences of his action in Spartacus House of Ashur Season 2. The two further complicated his life. Ashur murdering Cassier makes a major turning point for him in the eyes of society. He essentially declared that he would not longer conform to rules, and Rome likely is not thrilled with his decision. Dark Knight promised the Spartacus House of Ashur Season 2 would raise the stakes for everyone with Achillia's new status and goals. Her relationship with Ashur is more complicated than ever before, and the upcoming installment will introduce new gladiator and more political conflicts. Screenshot, given what the departure this is from the world of the Spartacus. Was there a plot point or character storyline that changed the most for you from inception for the final cut of the final episode? Steven has Tech Knight, that's an interesting question. The character of Torchen and the Gallius definitely changed quite a bit from the original concept as the story progressed. Originally, they were not father and son. Torchen was a guard in the ludus while Claudius was a fighter, and it was actually a suggestion from the Starz to try something different after thinking about it for the couple of days. I thought we have never done a father-son story. Let's do one of those so that the change validated from the original concept. And thinks the stances that note because I think it made a huge difference in the season. Screen right after the Gabnius passes, Ashur looks guilt-stricken whenever he is front of the Viridia but proud in the front of Colinia and the Cassier when no one else in around. What does the feel about what has happened? How much blame does he really take on the himself? Steven as that night he hates himself. He absolutely hates himself. There is a line when he comes back from the meeting with Cassier and where he tells the Ludus and Achillia will face the Sanitic. He says glory the house of King of Ashur, and you see that is carrying that guilt. He did everything the possible and to get off killing Gabnius. He even tried to stop the proceeding when Gabnius showed up, and they had that moment. He absolutely did not want Cass to die being forced to something you keep him quiet and something that's going to haunt him for a long time. You can see that guilt over what did when she was Viridia, and he hates himself because he loved Gabnius. That was the father he never had. Screenwriter, even though he was forced into the situation to appease the political actor around him, he is now being treated even worse among Roman society than he was when Gabnius was around. One would take it for Romans to eye him and less cruelly, and what will you give him a break? Steven Astagnan, I don't think the Romans are going to give him a break because he is of lower class, and that's why it is all boys, and two, it is a class system and he is someone from a lower class who is trying to climb up to higher class. They just will not have that. Screen rant. We also have a genial romantic moment that Viridia his episode only for her see him with the Hulra and the disappointed all over again. What should we make of his chasm between them, considering that does not even he responsible for her father's death yet? Steven has that yes wanted to bring them to close being together, then rip them apart. It just makes such a good story. Ashur kissing Hilda was purely him in the moment. Viridia says it and though absolutely hurt by that, but it is not like he was expressing his undying love for Hilda. He just got caught up in the moment that will reposition in the next season. Definitely he is still madly in love with Viridia, with his being told to uncertain terms that is and not happening. Screenwriter, when you look back at the season 1, is there is a storyline or a part of his world that you wish to had touched on more you hope to expand it next season? Steven has that I think touched on everything want to in season 1. Just want to more of it. I want more romance, more messy complications. Ashur now has a Ludus that has a hoard property with Achillia to has going to expanding. He want to bring in more gladiator, more gladiatrix and have more drama downstairs, the drama upstairs and going to rank up and a couple of notches to because of obviously Ashur was committed his murder. If anybody ever find out it and it is going to get the crucified, so it is a tough spot. But I also want that ending with the Cassier and significant that Ashur has just taken too much the shift from the Romans through the entire season. He is being trying to play their game, murdering Cassier in the start of him saying I am not going to try to fit in the Roman society. The Roman will below to now, so it is a sure unleash and he is going to back to someone his old way. Screen brand obviously he as Achillia is a ringing champion again. He was and which was a highlight of the episode, but she also confuses to Torchen that her goal to naturally to gain her freedom and return home. Where will the Achillia and Ashur dynamic go for there? It's really been difficult from the Ganius and the Spartacus with bacteria, and they will be more on odds, and that she has a chance to free herself just as he is trying to build his ludus. Stevenus Dark Knight will conflict in the concern of that series, so it is going to be a smooth ride for either one of them. There's really no drama in that, and there is going to be so many things happening in the season 2 and much pressure on a show that a few things that are going to sideways definitely. Screenwriter I was so that the Messias and was taken away. Obviously, he wanted to go good for her because she deserved and better, and but I also wanted to see more for her. We'll go get more Messia and Cornelia deals with her husband's death. Stevenus Dark Knight, I can say nothing. I expect love Lena and the Jumia. They are fantastic together, and I certainly would want to see more. Spartacus House of Ashur Starz discuss shocking episode 6 death. After proving to be one of more surprising dynamic of the series, Spartacus House of Ashur episode 6 brought Chorus and Opita's relationship to a shocking end, and the star behind them are breaking down the major death. Played by Outlander alum Graham McTavish, Chorus is the doctor of the ludus gifted to the territorial character who is charged with the training Tanica Davis Achillia to be a gladiator. Opiter, played by Arlo Gibson, is a Roman Lanicita who is sure instantly sent Chorus into the hopes of the squashing him and gaining favor for the show's ludus to participate in the bigger combat games. Through much of Spartacus House of Ashur season 1, the two slowly began realizing their deeper feeling for one another, particularly after the Chorus is nearly killed by a group of assassins sent by Claudia Black Costia. These all culminated in Spartacus House of Ashur episode 6, Empty Things, in which Opiter revealed his plans to kill Capua due to his involvement in the Viridias and the kidnapping. After initially rejecting her offer to flee with him, Opiter offered Ashur his entire ludus in exchange for Chorus coming with him to which season Arbalester proceeds and learn about and has brothers Foxes slaughter his entire household before the deal can be made. Ahead of the episode premiere, screenwriter Tatiana Hollander interviewed Graham McTavish and the Arlo Gibson to discuss the Spartacus House of Ashur episode 6. When asked about the filming of Peter's big death scene, Gibson began by laughing as he called himself lucky to get the play to movement, as when he was a kid my favorite imaginary game was being murdered. Arlo Gibson, when I was a kid I was always being defeated, and so there's something I quite like about the playing dead. It was a beautiful and held set and our directed for the episode and was amazing, and like Gilly who plays Starz and the other were so beautiful and the kind. They came up to me before it all happened and were like, we are so sorry we are murdering you today. Despite the fun, however, Gibson found the creative team go to the really lean into the and just how to disturbing Opiter does and feeling it was and what the scenes needed. McTavish want to share the having a photograph of Arlo and I immediately after the being horrible murdered, in which one both are smiling ear to ear. As the Spartacus spin-off star explained, the filming such as gruesome and death scene and shows that are so violent often turn out to be a lot of fun to shoot in the spite of their gruesome nature, with there being a lot of laughter and during the scene. Concurring with the Gibson that it perfect playing act, and McTavish described shooting scene like a Peter dismiss and being the enormous fun, even it was pretty blurred by the end. Arlo Gibson, there were so many prosthetic as tape bonds. It was why go to into the game. Graham Chorus will be haunted constantly by the Opiter's death. Screenwriter naturally Chorus will be going through it in episode 7 how far down that hole can go. Graham McTavish, I think it opened the gate and all the damness inside him at that point all bets off when you experience something like that. The thankful I have not experienced that level the trauma while tell somebody you really care for the horrible kid, but I think would my reason if that happened to somebody I really cared about. Chorus is not somebody who is super easy about the keeping his amateurs under the control and best of time, so this just pushes him off the cliff. It is only Ashur really that has the wet threads to reason with him and the directed the anger and the passion in the constructive way, or way that will stop in the ludus that Ashur genius. There is no situation that cannot see on advantage in he will go. Ye, I am so sorry about the death of your lover, and what if we use that? It is a kind of twisted mind, really, but very particular. Whereas Chorus is not a practical character, he is very driven by the feeling and the prejudice and all of that. Screenwriter, the original Spartacus race is no stronger to have the dead people who come back and haunt to narrative. Any chance are low that you might be interested in being on the apparition. Arlo Gibson, look second to big murdered ghost acting is very high up there. Any chance to haunt, I will be back in a heartbeat. That will be great. Graham MC Tavish Chorus is just haunted consequently every time he trusted around their orbiter. Arlo Gibson with the grabs and cheese, where were you when I needed you? Graham MC Tavish, but the question is, would you needed to be in the full blood prosthetic makeup? Arlo Gibson, would I be willing to sacrifice the horse every morning? Graham MC Tavish, that would be fine. No, I will have to clean himself up. He will clean up. Screenwriter, how do you think that close the effect Chorus moving forever, and whether it's to the season 1 final or beyond? Graham MC Tavish, well, I think that's a very good question. Actually, we talked about it before we did the finding, and I think at the door that was closed in Chorus life barrier to meeting the orbiter had opened, and Chorus is glad of it. But now with that happened and those the shamed shot, it really has. I don't know if it ever and open again, but who knows? Grief is so such interesting thing, and the process of it is individual. I guess with the episode going forever, we are not the dealing with a big pace of time in a really time, so I don't think Chorus will have any kind of emotional recovery in season 1. In the subsequent season, who knows that could possible happen with the Chorus, that orbiter will always be first love. Be sure to dive into the sum of our other Spartacus House of Ashur coverage with Nick E. Tarabay and Steven S. Deck Knight on the screen run, debugging AI strays, and Tarabay and Claudia Black explaining how the new Spartacus tweaked Roman history and to make her story work. Zoom yes later on what they expect from the Jolly's cashier role in the House of Ashur. Graham MC Tavish on the Chorus surprising romance in the Spartacus House of Ashur. Deck nights later, Tarabay and Indian Shah Smith on the season explores back half. Tarabay on how the final ending will leave finding and the Spartacus House of Ashur season 2. Deck Knight revealing the other Spartacus character that want to bring back after the Ashur. MC Tavish on the Chorus initial decision to leave Ashur for Orbiter. MC Tavish and Gibson on what Chorus and Orbiter future could have been. Chorus and Ashur Spartacus ending explained. Spartacus House of Ashur star Graham MC Tavish has unpacked Chorus and Ashur surprising and in the spin-off latest episode. The two major characters in House of Ashur parted ways to the end of episode 6, with Chorus being allowed to leave by the Dominus Ashur and Chorus share a moment where they pray together prior to his departure. In an interview with the Screen Rant, Tatiana Hollander, MC Tavish explains Chorus and Ashur final meeting with each other in the Spartacus House of Ashur episode 6. The series Starz emphasized how Chorus has been fighting his whole life, and having worked so closely with Ashur on the ludus was only able to see how close they become at very end. Graham MC Tavish, it like a saying goodbye to anything that you have become the completely familiar with, and that is just ingrained in your entire being. He is probably been a gladiator fighting as a slave and then working as an ex-slave for all his adult life. I think it's very hard in many ways. When he leaves the shore, he was slightly surprised by how touched he is at the moment of that parting, and they have been so locked into the ambition of the achieving everything for the ludus that almost like they have not taken the time to look at each other and go, well, actually I kind of like you are okay, even if was not here I might like hanging out with you. I think it is an interesting moment for both of them. Chorus had been a loyal member of his house of cards occupied some time working as a gladiator and trainer of gladiators for much of his life. Although Spartacus House of Ashur timeline different from that, the main show core still holds some attributes that added hint of the familiarity to show, the, especially his interaction with Ashur. And however, the Paris parting of ways was always ingrained with tragedy throughout the show. Chorus has been in a secret relationship with the operator who almost ran away with during the events of the episode. However, episode 6 and the operator and the villa killed by the brother forces the part of power play. Chorus does not know about the operator death by the end of the episode 6, and it's unclear how the fall out of his knowledge and can play out, but it is clear Ashur and has become close to the gladiator trainer in ways that the MCTV statement he never expected to, and this may have a significant role to play and avenging operator dismiss. The story of the Spartacus House of Ashur has only just begun through with the training point for both the character, potentially strengthening with the bonds, and however Chorus no longer has a role in the house, making his exit very possible in the episode 7, but it is really equally likely that show managed the twist with and the protagonists to become the bigger allies. Since Spartacus House of Ashur has 4 episodes left, there's plenty of time of the series to develop the aftermath of Chorus' departure. Now that and had Ashur have become the close allies, the moment will likely have consequences as the season continues, especially given by the tragic cliffhanger for the operator and the inevitable fallout that comes with his death. Spartacus' creator reveals which character he wants to bring back after the show's 100% RT sequel show. After the bringing back a dead man for a new Spartacus sequel show, there is another character, Steven Dark Knight, who would like to revisit if not revive. In a pre-release interview with the Screen Rant, Tatiana Hollander, the Spartacus House of Ashur creator, revealed which other figure from the original series he would like to further explore, declaring that there are other series I had loved to tell in the so-called the Spart Wars. I had loved to back before the show that and explore Ganges and Dark Knight, then said because the Destiny clear it is a fan favorite and I had loved to work with him again. With the show so locked on its title character, alternate timeline, repetition arc, there is just was not room in the show, and for any surprise revival. Dark Knight explained, I was really focused on the show character. I really love the idea of seeing a Batman to try be better. Clarus Ganius was introduced in the Spartacus Season 2 and was always featured in the prequel and show Spartacus Gods of the Arena. In the 2020 rant of the Spartacus character who were understand Screen Rant agreed with the Dark Knight and naming Ganius worth of a bigger role. Between the Ganius' superior fighting skill and no cover offering some needed comic relief, it would have been nice to see the former champion of Capua in more than the half the series. The article proclaimed a further dab into the Ganius could perhaps lead to a developing some better relationship skill after the Screen Rant named him and the sex of the Spartacus was couple, calling out the drama and the ensure between them after the Cybele became the person. Ganius this caused to the ensure and the appropriate. The article explained she would consequently confront the Cybele and want her to stay after each man, and this only the greater the reverse effect. Ganius began the ignoring Saxa and the eventually damper for her the Cybele for her stayed and until the time of his death. That the came via confliction. The Spartacus season 3 final after the Saxa met her and on tragic and earlier in the same episode. Even without the charmingly auntie the hurricane Janice in the mix, Spartacus House of Ashur has proven a critical success, boasting an initially 100% Rotten Tomatoes score that has since shrunk slightly to 92%. It shows the character Dark Knight has his way. House of Ashur season 1 it will be not be end of the line for the Spartacus sequel series. We are roughly mapped out about the season, and that could be 4 season, could be 7 season, all depending on how popular that show is. Dark Knight told Screen Rant back in July at Dago Comic Con. Spartacus House of Ashur comes out weekly on Starz with the next episode set to the drop on Friday, January 2. Chorus and Ashur Spartacus ending explained. Spartacus House of Ashur stars Graham MC Tavish has unpacked Chorus and Ashur's surprising ending in the spin-off latest episode. The two major characters in House of Ashur parted ways at the end of episode 6.